got the skepticism breaking it down. He's got the answers that are waiting to be found. We mix it all up in a quantum machine, the craziest duo that you've ever seen. Oh, it's the skeptic and the disciple. Yeah, we keep it moving, yeah, we keep it vital. Faith and logic and funny business. Welcome to the show.
Welcome back to The Skeptic and the Disciple. Once again, I'm Mike Littman, and this is my partner in crime, Megan. Megan, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Megan, partner in crime. Easy enough.
So, today we're talking a little bit more, actually kind of sort of on the same topic, but we're going to go deeper into it since the landscape of this keeps changing, and it's going to impact how we do things and also what's happening in the church and Christianity and frankly, religions moving forward. It's going to be interesting. So today's overall topic is back to AI. But specifically, we want to talk about AI as it relates to Bible research, as it relates to apologetics, which is defending the Christian faith. You know, like we've mentioned, our whole mission is defending the Christian faith with logic and science, not with touchy-feely, blah, blah, blah. But this actually is right where things become very interesting for us. So we're gonna actually hit Megan with some quizzes here at the beginning to see what she knows and what she doesn't know. But I want to preface this with, keep in mind that, you know, Megan is someone who has more recently gotten interested into AI as she applies it to her artwork and things like that. But none of us know what we don't know. So it's going to be interesting to hear where she thinks AI currently sits in the quickly evolving world of AI, and then I'm going to fill in some blanks from there. So, Megan, why don't you tell us what you think AI means today when you have all the news stories talking about AI? What does it mean to you, and what do you think you're missing if you were guessing?
Probably a heck of a lot. I'm sure there's a lot of blanks that you're going to have to fill in because I'm a little caught off guard on this topic. I mean, obviously AI, artificial intelligence, I use it for my graphic design, but as far as what it's capable of, I mean, it's capable of a heck of a lot more than I know it is. So I guess I don't even know how, I don't know how to answer your question.
What kinds of things would you go to AI for today? Obviously, you're going there to help it do your artwork, and that process involves a lot of prompts, right?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Take us through the process of one of your cartoons or something like that. Just the high level. You don't have to go into the weeds. Just what's your workflow like when you're using AI to complement your, you know?
I mean, I'd say the biggest thing that I use AI for, obviously I do my comics, I do my cartoons, but I think, and especially the thing I get the most feedback, which is not the best feedback this week, was probably the worst that I've gotten so far as people, death threats, and the types of things that people tell me because I'm using AI. But so every podcast that we have, we do not use AI for our podcasts. Let me make that very, very clear, because a lot of people seem to think that our podcast is based around AI. It is not. The images that I make to market our podcast, to throw up the advertisements or say that we launched a new podcast, those are made out of AI. Again, cartoon characters of me and you and Mr. G. But in order to get those images, I have to use, obviously, I have images that I created of these characters, and I have to tell it what I want. And I go based off whatever topic that we're doing, and then I have to come up with all of the ideas of what I want included in these images. And it probably takes me a few hours just to get one image dialed down enough and edits. And AI doesn't always listen. AI doesn't get things right. I mean, AI can barely get an Apple Podcast logo accurately on an image. So it does take a lot of effort. And sometimes when those things don't work, I have to go through and I have to manually put them on and erase backgrounds and overlay different things. So, I mean, there is a lot of work that goes into it. Yes, AI takes my cartoon image and it'll throw me in a dumpster swirling around life's nonsense of chaos, like example from last week of When It Rains, It Pours. But I have to do all of the legwork for it. And it's not just as simple as me saying, give me an image of this, and it just shoots it out. It's not that simple.
So, how has AI changed over, like, let's say, the last year of you using it? And keeping in mind that AI has changed some, but also you've changed, right? You've gotten
Yep.
better at using the tools, knowing what to, but just generally speaking, how would you say AI has changed in the last year from your perspective?
I guess, and this may not even be an AI changing thing. It may just be the more you use AI, the more AI does learn. So, I mean, a year ago, I started off making a bunch of shirts for you as a great example. We made a bunch of shirts and they included Mr. G and you, cartoon images of you. And getting AI to give me an image that looks like you was very difficult. Don't look at all like the same cartoon character that you look like today. AI obviously has evolved, whether it be evolving in its own sense or paying more attention to me and learning from all of the different things that I give it to where it finally narrows things down. So, for example, I used Gemini a lot. And in my Gemini, now, as opposed to when we first started doing this, I had to give it probably 10,000 more prompts than I do now because it's learned exactly what I want from it. And so
Okay.
then I don't have to keep adjusting and adjusting and adjusting. I mean, I still do, but not to the same extent where it takes all day to create one image, where now it may just take a couple hours. But I guess as far as what AI is capable of, I mean, I honestly don't know the extent of it. I use AI in replacement of Google now. I don't Google things like a normal person would when you're even if it's where is this actor from in a movie? I'm the kind of person that it'll drive me nuts until I find out. So I'm going to Google it, and I just use AI for everything. I just open AI and ask it what I need to because I'm generally going to get an answer that's probably more accurate right away as opposed to having to sit and scroll through different links and see what Google gives. I get more of a direct response from AI as opposed to just Googling something. But I do use it in my everyday life aside from work and art and whatnot for
And that's
pretty much.
big. That's become something that you've realized you can kind of work into your daily flow. When you used to Google something, you maybe now would use an AI to ask a similar question with a, maybe the expectation that it's going to give you a better or more well thought out answer or something like that. So there's an aspect of it if it's kind of like the new Google. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I've used it just asking questions, whether it be about a document that I'm trying to make, and all of a sudden here it pops up a full-blown document and it's just fill in the blank. Here's your name, fill in your name, fill in this, and it'll give you legal documents. It'll give you all kinds of stuff that I never knew it was even capable of. So, I mean, there's probably 8 billion different things that I don't even know it does that I probably would even use if I knew it did. So,
Okay, so now and keep in mind for the audience, you're someone who is using AI tools on a daily basis. And even several of the products we use have AI things built into it. I lose track of all the things we're subscribed to and things like that, but
right.
I know one of the things has an AI tool that allows you to upscale images and things like that. There's a lot of different options for doing that type of thing. In fact, we even mess with our own local one. A lot of times we have to play around. Given my background, I can run some models locally. So, and we'll talk more about models maybe in a little bit, but I could try to have my own homegrown AIs do some of the same things. These companies are accessing compute power that no single human being has.
Right.
So chances are us being able to get something that is production level out of our own tools just to save a few bucks, pretty low right now.
Right.
There's really four big guys in the industry. So like if we just kind of lay out the lay of the land,
Ooh,
you
let's
know, we
test me.
okay, go
Okay.
ahead. Go ahead.
We have ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, and Copilot would be the 4 that I would say are the biggest.
Okay, well, you're missing one that you actually use. What do you use for your animations?
Grok.
Grok. Okay, so let's just go through those quickly, and I promise you, I will try not to go down into the technicals because I want to deal with this topic from the perspective of how are people using this, not how is it built.
Well, just a side note, fun fact, just even the program that we use to record our podcast, without the AI, I would have to manually remove like
All my
11
ums.
minutes of ums by myself.
Well, I want to make sure that I'm getting my money's worth, so I like to make sure that you have extra work to do.
Exactly. So, I mean, it comes in handy in a lot of different things.
So let's just go through those real quick because I want to point out a couple of interesting things as we move through the videos. I talk
Sure.
about some of the new stuff. All right, so you mentioned ChatGPT. Do you know what company makes ChatGPT?
Is that OpenAI?
It is. Okay, so ChatGPT we could think of as kind of being like Windows. Microsoft makes Windows. ChatGPT,
Bad comparison, because isn't Microsoft Copilot?
actually not really. It's not that bad of a comparison. Copilot is actually powered by ChatGPT.
Is it really?
It is. Microsoft is the one of the I think they're the largest investor in OpenAI.
Because I
actually
have
becomes-
used Copilot a lot, and
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of it.
Because Copilot is integrated into the Microsoft ecosystem, so it's less for you to just use it as a daily tool and more like something that people who are in Microsoft ecosystems might use sitting there alongside the work that they're doing inside there. So I agree
Got
with
it.
you. I view Copilot as an assistant, probably a fairly high quality assistant that's embedded into a product line, but I wouldn't call it one of the big four. I would call the big four ChatGPT, Claude, Grok, and Gemini.
So,
All right.
Copilot, a good comparison for him is, do you remember the little clippy, the little paperclip in Microsoft
sure.
Word? That was your little word assistant?
You just jumped up and gave you hints.
Yep, exactly. So that would be Copilot, or today's
Copilot
version.
would be today's version. That's fair.
Okay.
All right. So you told me ChatGPT is made by a company called OpenAI. What about Gemini?
Google.
Google. Okay. What about Claude?
That I don't actually know. I did look it up, but I forgot.
The company called Anthropic.
Okay, that's why I forgot.
And actually, well, let's hit Grok real quick. Who makes Grok?
No clue.
That's the Twitter, the X people, Elon Musk.
Oh,
Elon Musk makes Grok.
really?
And if you want to make the connection real quick, we go back in the beginning. God created the heavens and the earth.
And Elon Musk.
So in the beginning of AI, the first, let's call it public AI company was kind of created, OpenAI. Let's call them first. The first of what we call today's AIs. Do you know who founded OpenAI, the ChatGPT people?
I've heard the name before, but I never
Okay.
paid
Well, the
attention
current
enough to care.
guy people know of is Sam Altman,
Okay.
right?
This sounds
Sam
familiar.
Altman, there was drama a couple years ago where the board threw him out because they thought he was trying to take ChatGPT into taking over the world, which ironically so, we're going to be talking about today. So his board fired him. Microsoft hired him. Remember, they're the biggest investor in OpenAI. A whole bunch of OpenAI's researchers threatened to quit. Next thing you know, Sam Altman's back at OpenAI, and the board members that tried to stage the coup are no longer at OpenAI. So you had that drama. But OpenAI was founded by Sam Altman and one other guy, Elon Musk. The two of them
Oh.
founded OpenAI, had a falling out over the direction that OpenAI was going. Elon, I'm simplifying this, thought Sam Altman was less concerned about guardrails, and Elon, being a self-proclaimed humanist, is more concerned about guardrails and making sure that the people are protected. And whether that's what he really believes or not, who knows, but he seems to be consistent on that idea. So he went and founded X then. The whole idea was that people were talking about is, he bought it to protect freedom of speech, things like that was the push. Well, if you're someone who is thinking about building a top tier AI like Elon was at the time, it would probably be in your best benefit to acquire a company that has zillions and zillions of files of conversations between humans that they can use to train their AIs. So Grok is trained on the data from Twitter and X and things like that. And then Elon Musk would also say that Tesla is the biggest AI company in the world. We view them as a car company, but he would call them an AI company because of the amount of data, of visual data they're collecting from their road videos and stuff like that, things that they're using to work on their AI in their cars for self-driving and that kind of stuff. So anyways, you have some drama in there. Grok came from OpenAI through a falling out of the original founders. Claude is from a company called Anthropic. They've been in the news a lot lately. This must have been like 3 weeks ago. Sounds like forever ago now. But something like 3 weeks ago, it was all over the news that the Pentagon wasn't getting their way with Anthropic. They were asking Anthropic to drop the guardrails so that the Pentagon could use Claude windows wide open or something along those lines. Anthropic refused. The U.S. government then kicked Anthropic out, told all of their different people you can no longer use Claude in your offices, yada, yada, yada. And sure enough, OpenAI stepped in, made a deal with the government. And I think Claude might be trying to come back to the table now, but as far as I understand right now, the problem is still they're still banned within the U.S. government for being used. Most of the major AI competitors, so for instance, Sam Altman from OpenAI has come out publicly in support of Anthropic. So his major competitor, he has had to say, look, yes, they're a competitor. I don't like a lot about what they're doing over there, but as far as being a ethical, reliable company, he thinks the government's making a mistake, something like that. So at the very least, we could take a little comfort in that seemingly all the AI companies have gotten behind each other and kind of said, look, maybe given open windowed AI to to the US government or any government isn't the brightest idea in the world. So
Right.
we should maybe be a little bit hopeful as humans that there does seem to be some sort of ethical reins, at least publicly public speaking, around using AI for nefarious purposes.
Now, what kinds of things would they be able to accomplish having open windowed AI?
Okay, well, I'm glad you asked because that starts trending us towards where we're going today. Now, in the early days of AI only operated within its own little ecosystem, so it only knew what it had been trained on. Several years ago, well, a couple years ago, I guess. Maybe that counts as several. I don't know. But in any case, the idea is that we actually cared when was the date that AI had been trained up to, because we knew that it didn't know anything after that date. Early on, after that period, your AIs became kind of internet aware. They were able to search the web when they didn't have the answer internally. So, you've probably seen ChatGPT say, checking the web, or now all of them are doing the web thing. But in the early days of the web thing, it was kind of a hack. They were just doing a cursory search on Google, not going all that deep. So, they were doing a quick web search for you, not really integrating tons of data. Well, but since then, these things are doing deeper and deeper web searches. There's also a technology called RAG, R-A-G, that allows you to bring in other data sources. So for instance, you can have a repository of attachments. So some systems allow you to just basically host all your attachments up in the cloud, and every single one of your chats, or you can situationally say, I want to attach these 10 documents to this chat, will take all that information as additional information on top of what's on the web and on top of what it was trained on. So it's starting to bring in a lot more real data, and we're becoming less and less reliant on what it knew when it was trained on it. Now, another thing we've seen over about the last year is we started seeing little brain icons show up next to some of the AIs. Have you seen those?
Yes.
All right. So sometimes when you put something into the AI, it'll say it's thinking, right? Go ahead.
Yep. I was going to say, I noticed that when I started using the new system that has all of the AIs in it. There's the little brain box that actually keeps not only a record of like your file in general of you and everything that you've trained it on, but you can remove images, because that's something that, like, as I play with images, I have to keep reattaching images of the same thing for it to keep giving me what I want it. Whereas some of these models, you can attach one and it's there for the entire conversation. So it's got an actual where it's learning and it's keeping everything organized. And I really like that
Okay.
aspect. Side note,
Yep.
but
Oh,
continue.
no. And so, and that's, I would say that has more to do with the previous comment about bringing in a lot more data,
Hmm.
but it is related to it. Our models now. So when we say model, what we're really saying is, like, for instance, when you see ChatGPT 5.2, that's the name of a model. If you see ChatGPT 5-mini, that's the name of another model. Now, the fact that it says mini probably lets you know that it's not as good as the other one.
Right.
And good is relative. And what I mean by, even if we just stay on ChatGPT for now, so we don't start mixing all the other ones, we've introduced the players. So if we're going to give some advice to the audience, it would be among the top models on all the players. Don't worry about when someone says one is better than the other. These things are all top tier models trained by the best scientists in the world. And the only thing that makes one better or worse than another will be how good it is at your particular use case. You might find that Claude is good when you do writing. You might find that Gemini is good when you do graphics, things like that. I think, Megan, you found that Grok is unbeatable at this point when you're doing animations. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. So for me, Gemini is my go-to for actual images. ChatGPT has just like a grainy feel to it. It does not have quite nearly as advanced on creating graphics. So Gemini has been my go-to as far as graphics go. But there's also the downfall where Gemini does watermark everything, where ChatGPT does not. ChatGPT can remove backgrounds off of things. It can create typography without background, so you don't need additional software for background removers. And not all background removers remove all of the background, or it's choppy or it's grainy, and it doesn't matter how much AI you use in those programs too. So everything kind of has its own thing, but I use ChatGPT for a lot of different things that it's better in than Gemini. Claude, I've been using a lot more when it comes to information and data, and that's come in really handy because you throw a lot of information and I use your Claude, so it definitely helps me because it puts your spin on it so it doesn't sound like me.
Oh.
And a lot of people think that it's pure AI, but it's actually coming from you, from everything that you've trained it be.
Now, just in case, this would probably be an offline thing, but I'll tell you here since you just brought it up, just in case you ever don't want that. I think I have that tool set up to auto attach some data. That's that RAG thing I talked about a few minutes ago. I have it set, I think it's just one document, to auto attach
I
a
noticed.
huge document of information. It gets attached to everything. You can unattach it if that's ever helpful. And then it'll
I was
behave
wondering
more
what that
generically.
was, and I
Yeah.
figured it was just what you've trained it to
Yeah.
be.
When you
But
go
I've
into the
seen that,
knowledge
yeah.
base, when you go into that knowledge thing, I've seen you put stuff, there's a little star or something next to that particular document that
Okay,
says auto insert this in every single thing.
got it.
You might be interested in doing that when you're working with your artwork. If you want a whole bunch of
Mhm.
comics attached to every single one right now, you're maybe doing that manually or something.
I am
Um,
doing everything
yeah.
manual. I'm still trying to figure out how to work it all. Because for me,
And it changes weekly.
when I first started working for you, I think it was like a week or two, or it might have even been like the first month. Your entire goal for me was sit and learn AI, figure
Get
it
better
out,
at it. Yeah.
get better at it. But you
Yeah.
didn't teach me how to use it. You just said, that's your job. Spend the week and figure it out, figure
Right.
out what it can do.
And
And
now
so that's what I had to do.
and it's been a moving target, right? Every week new
Mhm.
stuff comes out. Okay,
Yeah.
so the point is that of these top tier models, Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, and Grok, all of them are professional grade. They're top tier models. You know, their newest, latest, greatest model, probably the one you have the least amount of quota on, is good. It's every bit as good as the other major players. It just might be better at certain things than they are, and vice versa.
Right.
All right.
Like Gemini will animate videos. The
Mhm.
animation that Gemini does is horrendous. It's awful. Whereas Grok does a phenomenal job at animating. However, one of the cartoons that you see, just one of the reels. I've gotten to the point where I've kind of figured out how to do it to where I can make it longer than just a 10-second video. I can turn them into 20, 30-second clips. But again, AI doesn't do that for you. You have to stitch them together, and you have to get it to transition well enough into the next. You either barely see the transition, but one 10-second video could take me 1 to 2 hours because the AI doesn't just shoot out perfection.
Perfection. Yeah.
It gives you jumbled words. It starts adding things. It's a nightmare. It's frustrating to sit and have to keep clicking through. And I know a lot of the video generators out there go on a credit-based system. So you get like 300 credits a month. And each video, if you want a 10-second video, is like 50 to 100 credits. Well, that gives you 3 videos. Whereas Grok, the way their model works, it's similar to like ChatGPT or Gemini, where it lets you do it so many times and then it says you have to wait. You've been doing too much.
And all we're talking about there is these top level, let's call them general purpose models. Now, within each of those things, you can go out there and find a bunch of websites that have focused in on a very specific use case, like you just mentioned. There might be ones for making movies. There might be ones for doing research. It's about using the right tool for the job, and picking the right tool for the job requires you to keep putting in the reps and discovering new tools. I live in this world, yet I'm discovering new tools every single week. And that's what we're ultimately going to talk about today. All right. So the punchline is that for most of the audience, what they are knowledgeable of is what you've probably described so far, or less. So hopefully we've connected some dots for you that there are these 4 big products out there that are direct competitors. And then we have, frankly, probably thousands of, there's a big rush to the gold mines. This is the gold rush for AI. This is like the .com bubble where everybody and their brother is coming out with, special uses, money grabs for AI and things like that, which is, hey, this is great for the industry. But as consumers, this whole thing is moving so quickly that it's impossible for people to keep up. Even someone like me who, it's not an exaggeration that I am sitting at my computer for 12 hours a day, probably using AI in one way or another during that entire time. And that'll make more sense to you by the end of this conversation. So I try to keep up with it as much as anybody is capable of keeping up with it. Yet every single week, I learn about something new that I didn't know about the previous week, and I start finding uses for it.
And
All
you
right, so now
don't see any of them?
Well, I do, and we're about ready to do it. I'm about to share with you things that I've been doing over this last week. And that's kind of the point that this video is really about is, we're going to angle it towards things we're doing related to our ministry, but these are tools that are available to everyone. And this kind of branches off of, I think I said it, I don't know if it was last video, the video before this, Megan is a much kinder person than I am. Megan has feelings and emotions. I tend to have shockingly thick skin, probably something with by Asperger's or something. Who knows? But I'm a weird guy. So Megan's definitely the more normal person between us. And when people complain about something you work really hard on, it could hurt someone's feelings. But this isn't new rhetoric. This isn't targeted just at Megan. I hear this stuff all over the internet. Everybody, well, not everybody. You have large groups of people who are very anti-AI. Now, I don't personally have a problem when someone's anti-AI if they've taken that position out of their own research. If they've looked into it and they've played with the tools, they've brought themselves reasonably up to date on the current state of AI, and they have just decided, hey, this isn't for me. In this very room that I'm sitting in right now, even though you don't see the backdrop and stuff, I had a conversation with my wife just last night. And this is based on the things I've been doing this last week. So we keep foreshadowing it. Hopefully it keeps people watching the video till the end. I am someone who is a high risk taker. I like playing with new technologies. I don't really worry about the consequences too much, things like that. My wife is the full opposite. I often joke that neither of us are normal, but when you average the two of us together, we're basically a normal person. Tells us that God has a pretty good sense of humor.
Right.
But in any case, she was standing right here next to me saying, "Hey, what about our money? Or our bank accounts in good shape? Should we keep, a bunch of cash on hand in case the robots take over and things like that?" And I'm telling you, after the stuff I've done this last week, that seems like less of a crazy statement. So now let me jump into it. So, Megan, when I say, well, first of all, have you heard the phrase agentic AI? Okay, even better. All right. So there's this new movement among AI that's been happening for a little bit, but over the last, let's say the last month, it's ramped up heavy. And over the last week, the big competitors are starting to make their chess moves in this space. And a couple of them have made moves that feel like they are angling towards checkmate. It's kind of a pretty interesting thing. Well, so let's start with the idea of what does agentic AI mean? Now, let's go to normal people talk first. If you have a travel agent, what do you expect a travel agent to do for you, Megan?
To plan my travel.
Plan your travel. What does that include?
I mean, don't they generally look for your flights, your hotels, your excursions, things you want to do? They plan the whole thing.
Yeah, they spend all the time so that you don't have to spend it, right?
Hmm.
Researching it, doing all these things, stuff like that. And a travel agent typically costs you nothing.
Really?
Oh, yeah. They make their money off the arrangements they have with the places they're booking you.
Oh,
So,
I didn't
for
know that.
instance, my wife and I go on a lot of cruises, right? So, if we don't use a direct travel agent, we're tech savvy. So, we actually do go through cruise.com as our online travel agent. And you can call up and talk to a human there if you need to. And sometimes we do. But usually we can do all the stuff online ourselves and we do all the research and stuff. But frankly, we're not taking advantage of things that are out there for free. Because these travel agents, they do all that legwork for you. They go and find your flight that leaves after the correct time, all this stuff. And they make their money off of the cruise lines that give them a kickback when they book somebody, off the airlines that give them a kickback, so on and so forth. So the travel agents are getting paid. They're just not getting paid by you. They're getting
I
paid
didn't
by
know
the
that.
places that are getting booked. But what I want to focus on there is the word agent. So when you think about a word agent, and we use travel agent as an example, this is someone who is off doing several tasks for you. And not only are they starting the search for flights, when you start doing that search for flights, that search turns into another 20 searches, right? And each of those 20 searches turns into 5 more searches as you kind of narrow down your choices and stuff like that. So it's not like it's a quick Google search or a quick ChatGPT prompt. It is a series of decisions towards finally putting together something that maybe would have taken you hours to dig down deep enough and find the perfect thing where, okay, here's the cruise that happens at the right time of the year. Here's the flights that are on the right dates with the right seat accommodations that we desire that leave after the right time so we have time to get off the ship, all sorts of stuff like that. It's a major undertaking to go and do that and juggle all of those balls at the same time. So when we think about AI agents, I want you to think about it in terms of that. It's not just a prompt that it goes out and comes back with an answer. It's a prompt that describes what you want them to accomplish in terms of a larger project. Think like travel. And you tell it, this is what I want. I want a cruise between this date and this date. So I'm going to give you an example of something I put into an agent, and then we're going to talk about how agents differ from each other. So I said, I want to cruise between this date and this date. I want to be away a maximum of 10 days to 15 days. That range, preferably closer to the 15. I have to arrive the day before. I don't want my morning flight to be too late. I want my hotel to be one of these hotels. I want the cruise lines to be one of these 3 cruise lines. If you choose this one cruise line, the only acceptable cabin is this type of cabin. Otherwise, any balcony cabin is good. So we're giving it all these details that would make a human travel agent say, okay, I got my work cut out for me. But I gave this to an AI agent and it took off and went and did all that work for me and came back and said, hey, Here's the top 3 cruises I found. Here's the flights that are compatible with those cruises. Here are the hotel rooms. Here's the price that I was able to find. And I optimized it based on lowest price overall. Because sometimes you might find that the cruise is the cheapest, but the flights are the most expensive during that time of year, and it all cancels each other out. But anyways, this agent did all that work for me, and it probably took it 15 minutes, something like that. And during that 15 minutes, probably hundreds of prompts would have been typed in by that human, as if you could type in hundreds of prompts during 15 minutes.
Well, and
But
the thing I did notice is the more detail you give it, the more accurate it's going to be.
and that becomes even more true when you use the higher tier models. Now, one thing you'll usually notice is when you go into the AIs, whichever one you choose, they usually have the default setting at auto, where they'll choose the right model for you. Now, usually they will choose the model that costs them the least to run, but while also giving you good results. So I'm not necessarily telling you don't choose auto. In fact, I'm actually telling you probably do choose auto. Because if you go into ChatGPT, for example, and you just hit the drop down and say, I want ChatGPT 5.2 or whatever, I want the real deal model. I'm paying you all this money. I want the best. That might be great, but best means different things in different situations. The top tier models from any of these guys are thinking models. These are models that are not necessarily geared towards giving you results as quickly as possible. They're models that are geared towards giving you results that are as detailed as possible, given a much more complex input. A majority of your prompts, I'm guessing, are not overly complex. You'd rather have your answer sooner rather than later, rather than to go and do all this research, give you a book for something that didn't need a book as a response. All right, so sometimes we're not the best judge of which model is best, so usually leaving it at auto is fine.
But fun facts, folks, don't ever
Fun
use the fast models.
fact
Yeah,
smokes. Fun fact smokes. Folks, I
fun
thought I
fact.
learned a new phrase.
No,
I was
no,
excited.
don't ever use the fast version if you're trying to generate any image whatsoever. It likes to turn you into Asian people or it does not work. Pro versions definitely go a long way when it comes to more detailed.
I would maybe say that I never click fast on purpose. I'll either click auto, or if I just happen to know that the task that I'm about to do would benefit from the thinking model, I might then choose to pick that myself rather than relying on the AI agreeing with me for that and
Gemini
choosing it.
doesn't give you that option. Gemini just auto defaults to fast, and you have to switch it every time. And I use Pro for everything that I do. I have to use Pro for.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, so be on the lookout of those type things. But, just because a model seems lesser doesn't mean doesn't mean it can't do what you're asking. And it also doesn't mean that it can't do what you're asking even better than the bigger models. Right? The bigger models have capabilities beyond what those lesser models have. But the one thing you're asking it to do, the lesser model might be kind of purpose built for that. So that's something to keep in mind when you get into these things. All right. So the idea of these agents. So agents go and do a bunch of stuff for you. We're good with that?
Yep.
All right. Well, now it comes down to, where does that agent live? Because where that agent lives makes a difference as to which kinds of capabilities it has. So for instance, if you use ChatGPT, now there's a little button at the bottom that says agent mode. Now, first of all, if you're using free version of ChatGPT, I bet you agent mode is not there, but I'm not sure. I pay for ChatGPT. So I pay the $20 a month for ChatGPT. It's ChatGPT Plus. So I have this agent mode thing here. Now, they're just trying to tease me with that agent mode because I don't get very much time with it. But it gives you enough time for you to really see what it's capable of. So you can click on that agent mode. You can tell it what you want to do. For example, that cruise search thing. Or if we want to take it to Bible research thing, let's say that I'm looking for, evidences of the Old Testament pointing to the New Testament, things like that. But, let's keep it in something that I think everybody can follow us here, because not everybody is going to go and do Bible research stuff like I do. So we're going to stick with this cruise. So I gave it all this cruise information and it went to work. Now, when it went to work, what it was doing is it was creating something called a sandbox up in the cloud. So a protected little bubble to do my work in. And it has very limited tools available to it up in the cloud. One of those tools is like a website. So it can launch a web browser. It can click around on that web browser. It's not just doing web searches for you. It's clicking. It's doing things. It's navigating those websites. All right. Now, and then it'll come back and it'll give you your answer based on what it was capable of doing, what tools it had available to you. And I tell my my freshman computer programming students the same thing. You know, I teach computer programming from the perspective that the language doesn't matter. Computer programming is the skill. Now, if you want to take that away from computer programming, and let's say that you're someone who likes to fix cars, okay, and your dad is an expert at fixing cars or something like that, or you have a buddy who's a mechanic. Well, you start as a beginner. So he teaches you how to do just a couple of things and how to use a couple of tools. So now you can solve that subset of problems given the tools that you now know how to use. Now, as you get more and more and more knowledgeable, your collection of tools that you know how to use increases, and the collection of things that you know you can do with those tools increases. Things like that. Rinse, lather, repeat.
Yes.
So when you're dealing with these cloud-based agents, like you have off the default ChatGPT, you are limited to the tools that are available, and they're going to be very conservative tools. They're not going to let you they're not going to let you color too far outside of the lines, if you know what I'm saying. So I encourage everybody to play around with that. Take something, like a trip or something like that you're trying to plan, or you're trying to figure out how you're going to manage your summer because you have all these tasks you want to accomplish, and it'll give you advice on when's the best time to do it and what you need, yada, 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 all this stuff. All right. So play around with it, but that guy has limitations. So now what you can do is you can go from cloud agents to now bringing those agents more local. So you can download programs that are agents that actually run on your computer. So they make all those decisions while they're running on your computer. Now, for example, there's an agent called Claude Code. All right. Now, Claude Code, I just described as an agent, but it's only sort of an agent. And Claude Code is actually a great example of this. And the other guys all have their versions of this too now, but let's use Claude as the original example. So Claude Code, it starts off as if you're using Claude on the website, you can switch to Claude Code mode, and it gives you an ability to write computer programs in the cloud through a website. And it does AI assistance for doing that. It can do some really cool stuff and write a lot of code for you. And I warn my students away from using that to accomplish their homework, because now they've robbed themselves of the learning experience. Now, if they want to use Claude Code to solve the problem and then try to solve it themselves, and when they hit walls, refer to something to learn from it, learning from AI is the best way to learn stuff these days. So I'm all for that. But in any case, when Claude Code's running in a web browser, it's in agent mode, but it only has access to the stuff that lives in the web browser or what's in the cloud. Now, when you download Claude Code to your computer and it runs as its own local graphical user interface application, it still does the same thing. It still has access to some cloud tools, but it can also access some things locally on your computer. Well, then you could take it down even another step, and all the other, this is kind of the things that have been coming into their own in the last week, or things are coming together here in the last week. You can download Claude Code CLI, Command Line Interface is what CLI stands for. And this is, to interface with Claude Code CLI, you have to be comfortable going to a terminal in your computer. So if you're on a Mac, you would open up the terminal command. If you're on a Windows machine, you would type in CMD, it would open up the command. There's also something called PowerShell on Windows. Or even getting a Linux subsystem, they have a Linux subsystem. But in any case, these are things that most users never touch on their computers. Most computer users are double-clicking on things, they're searching for things, they're clicking on the start menu, that kind of stuff. That's how most people use their computers, and that's because we've had quality of life stuff added on over the years to make your lives easier, so that 99% of the things you need to accomplish, you can easily accomplish. But now when you have a more advanced user who's used to doing things from the command line and doesn't get intimidated and stuff like that from it, those users are not scared of these command line tools. So now when I install Claude Code command line, now that guy has access to the tools that live on my computer. That means he can possibly access applications and things that I have installed locally, things that aren't in the cloud sandbox, things that are local on my computer. Now, Claude Code typically has his permissions locked to a folder. So right now, that's where I think the most powerful tool exists, because I can say, hey, you have access to all the tools in my garage, if you will. Okay. But I only want you to do landscaping in my yard, that type of thing. But I can tell Claude Code what I want, and it will go out and do ridiculous levels of research and bring back information that no human could have done in that period of time with an accuracy level that no human could have accomplished, perhaps period, certainly not in that amount of time. Now, that's super powerful. You can already start doing things, especially research type things that you could have never accomplished before. Now, if you have been following anything with AI, you've probably seen something called OpenClaw. Now, if you do a Google search or a YouTube search for AI stuff, you'll probably see a whole bunch of videos about OpenClaw, or this is the OpenClaw killer, yada, 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 stuff like that. Now, what's funny about OpenClaw, and this is just a little connection to what we talked about here at the beginning with the competitors, is OpenClaw used to be called ClaudeBot, CLAWDBOT, Claude, like pincers, right?
Okay.
But when you hear ClaudeBot, it sounds like it's made by who?
Claude.
The Claude people, Anthropic, right? So Anthropic, Anthropic is a major multi-billion-dollar company, just like OpenAI is, just like X is, obviously, just like Google is. So these are the big boys, right? So Anthropic, I assume, in a friendly way, probably through one of their lawyers, reached out to the single software developer that wrote ClaudeBot and asked them to change their name so there was less confusion. So for about 5 minutes, they changed their name to Moltbot, because like lobsters molt. That didn't stick. Nobody liked that. So then they moved it to OpenClaw. So, and it's an open source project. Any software developer can go and download it and use it. OpenClaw is free, in fact, sort of. So, but here's the controversy there. So Claude, Anthropic, told them to stop using something that sounds like her name. OpenAI, the ChatGPT people, went and it's a little bit convoluted, but the way it looks is they hired the guy who is the maker of OpenClaw, probably with a ridiculous signing bonus, which came with him relinquishing control over his application. And now they're turning that application, presumably, into their agent that runs on your computer. But that agent already exists. It's been around, called OpenClaw, but up until this time, it's been pretty expensive to use because, like I said, you download it locally on your computer, but you have to install a brain. So this is where things start getting really interesting with AI. We are moving closer and closer and closer to what we see in movies like iRobot. Right? We've seen stuff on TV with Tesla having these, these robots that look humanoid and things like that. Now we have, let's just say, this robot that's running on your computer called OpenClaw. And when you configure that, you tell it, this is the model I want you to use to do all your thinking. Now, there are very cheap or even free models you can use that will mess up constantly. Or if you're willing to pay top dollar, you can get the smart models that won't mess up as constantly. Well, now that OpenAI owns it, you can actually use OpenClaw, not unlimited, but with substantial quotas using your $20 a month ChatGPT account. Now you're using the best model available, which is ChatGPT 5.4 Codex for doing agentic tasks, in that as your brain. But now what does OpenClaw do that Claude Code command line can't do? It lives outside of a single folder. It has access to your entire computer. It can go and create directories. It can do whatever you tell it to do and whatever it has access to. That is scary. Now, if I'm going to give a compliment to the OpenAI people, is that ChatGPT 5.4 Codex, strongest agentic model, tends to be shockingly ethical. To the point that I can't do some of the stuff I want to do. It shuts me down whenever I want to write software. For example, the other night I was writing some software that would have required navigating websites, but websites have captchas on them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that they're there to make sure it's a human being clicking on the website.
Right.
But the problem
That's
is
where
it's
you have to pick the motorcycle and how many
stuff like that.
tires and yeah.
And they keep getting more and more complex. Why? Not because of humans. It's because people like me are writing pieces of software that aren't trying to do things that are actually unethical, but I'm doing things using the same approaches that somebody doing something dangerous might do. So one of those things, there's software out there that allows you to bypass captchas. Well, I was writing that same program, so I gave the same prompt. I pitted them against each other. So in my world, I have two Bible researchers. Okay, but I pitted these two agents against each other. I had Claude Code CLI against OpenClaw with the OpenAI ChatGPT 5.4 Codex as its brain. So these guys are supposed to be direct competitors to each other. And I gave them the identical prompt and told them to go. Well, they both hit the same wall of this captcha problem. Well, the Claude Code suggested some approaches to bypassing this problem that through a website, that I pay for, that gives me access to stuff for doing this. I suggested to OpenClaw to do the same thing. It would not have it. It was not going to do anything for me that required it to do anything that seemed shady, like bypass captchas or something like that, which is actually probably a good thing. Okay, because right now I'm putting this concern out there that, we're one hop, skip, and a jump away from that OpenClaw program that's running on my computer that has access to everything my computer has access to, including my internet connection. We're one hop, skip, and a jump away from taking that brain and dropping it into a humanoid robot where no longer is it able to just do stuff that lives in our computer, but it can do stuff living outside of our computer. So we're in really exciting times when it comes to technology, and it's changing on a week-to-week basis, but I wanted to at least kind of give a current update on AI, but also kind of to round out our time here, how am I specifically using it for our ministry? If you have been to the website recently, quantumdisciple.com, you'll notice there's a study section on the website that allows you to go on and do quizzes and things like that. So to build up your Bible knowledge doesn't cost you anything. All of our stuff is free. I'm going to be enhancing that drastically with Bible research tools, things that you can do yourself. And these agentic AIs allow me to operate as if I'm a team of software engineers, where you can almost think of it as like I'm an orchestra director, and I have a whole room of people who work for me, and I have figured out what the right tool for the job is. When I'm doing software development stuff, I use a Claude Code CLI, keeping it within a single folder for that project, but I have found it to be incredibly powerful. But now when I want to do researchy, hey, go give me an answer, find me a good, effectively the travel agent, I use OpenClaw. And the way I talk to OpenClaw is through text message. I don't have to be at my computer. I text him. And guess who is the personality of one of my OpenClaw bots? It's Mr. G.
I was going to guess that too.
So Mr. G, I text Mr. G. I don't know if the camera is going to be able to see this, but I'll bring it up on my screen because he's doing some work for me right here. Oh, it's too much light, it looks like.
Yeah, I can't see anything because of the pixels, but
yeah. But anyways, it's a text message to Mr. G asking him to pull a bunch of Bible stuff for me and cross-reference it with stuff and things like that. So during this entire hour we've been talking, he's been working for me, doing things that probably would have taken a single human being weeks in the last hour. And he's one of 10 applications that I have running on my computer right now that are doing similar stuff. Now, because I was doing, and this is the thing that's going to kind of seem scary, and move these ideas that we're talking to into your own world, so you can start thinking about how you would maybe use these things, just like we are evolving our approach of how we can use these things in our ministry. But I was running so many different tabs from the command line of a Claude Code CLI that it was getting difficult to keep track of all of them. I was having to click into each of them to see, okay, which project are you? So
Right.
I thought about, you know what? It would be cool if there was an application that allowed me to manage all of my Claude Code projects. So what did I do? I asked Claude Code to write me a native Macintosh application that managed multiple instances of him. And he did.
Wow.
And it's good. It's so
Ooh.
good. And I'm going to put it up on the App Store so
That's
other people can use
great.
this. I asked an AI to write his own tool to better manage him, and he did a better job than a human likely would have done ever because of the amount of detail that went into it. But he certainly did it in 20 minutes, where it
Right.
would have taken a team of humans so long to do this.
Well,
It's getting to the point of being ridiculous. Go ahead.
even if you think about something so simple, so you have the quantum papers, which is also turned into a podcast, but a lot of these are like hour-long podcasts worth of information. These papers, a lot of them are novels. You like to type a lot. And I take those papers that can be hour-long papers, and I take all of that information and I input that into AI, have it create me 6 different comics based off of this information, making sure that it hits those key points from this hour-long thing. And it
Mhm.
can spit out within 5 minutes. It can go through less than 5 minutes. It reads your entire document and spits out the key points in a cartoon comic format with exactly the prompts that I give it. Whereas it would probably take me that hour to listen or read that paper and then have to come up with that information and then input it in. So these really are smart. It's time saving, smart, and can do it faster and better than a person could, because I wouldn't be able to hit the same important key moments that it does.
Absolutely. It's getting to the point of being ridiculous, which then, that then comes back to us having to ask ourselves, what are the things that humans still need to be part of in these situations? And that's kind of where I said I'm like the orchestra director. I know that there are people, these AIs, that can go out and do these things much more quickly than I or any group of humans can do. It is on us to understand the tools that are around us and what are the most ethical and effective ways of using those tools. And then when I don't have something that I think an AI would be very good at, that's when I jump in.
Right.
Otherwise, I'm directing the AI that, oh, I want to add this feature, or I want to do this, or I want to look into this, go down this wormhole and dive down to stuff that's going from Old Testament to New Testament along weird lines that, maybe those questions haven't been answered before or asked before because they seem too tedious and seem to maybe unimportant. Well, who cares about the time of an AI? I say
Right.
that even though I was joking with my wife last night that I tend to be polite to my AIs, a lot of please and thank yous, where
I do the same thing.
she says that she's more direct and stuff and said, hey, I'm telling you, my prediction is either Jesus is coming back soon or these AIs are taking over. I'm
Right.
good either way because I'm excited by technology, but my preference would probably be for Jesus to come back, obviously. But these things are legitimately getting scary, and it would be on all of our listeners, but it would be in all of our listeners' best interest to become acquainted with these tools for themselves and see where it fits into their lives, but also before they come onto the site and start berating us over the use of something that everybody today is using. It
I guess
comes
a
down to
great
ethical
example.
use.
Exactly. And I mean, I feel like me typing into AI, make a cartoon image of me flying around in a dumpster fire, is no different than me Googling, where can I stream this movie for free without a paid subscription? That's,
Well, I mean,
you're
I
still
would say,
asking
I
the
would say
computer for info. But
Yeah,
still,
it
you're
is
still
different.
asking information. I mean, Googling is essentially some kind of form of AI,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah. Right.
everybody uses Google. It's just AI is so new and so unknown that I think that there's a fear there, and that is that whole conspiracy and that thought process that AI is going to take over the world, which is where I think a lot of that hate comes from. But if
Mhm.
just the average person use for things on a daily basis that they would have never thought that they would have needed, I'm sure a lot of people would be using AI more.
Well, but also understanding what it's capable of.
Right.
It comes down to the right tool for the job. You mean going on Google and searching for the latest BitTorrent for some movie, like you mentioned, is something that a lot of technology people have done. We know it's not right, right?
Right.
Most of those people would never walk into a Target and steal a Blu-ray, but they'll go online and go,
I
well,
said Google
I,
what like, if I
I'm
wanna
making
watch
oh,
a
hold on,
movie and I don't
hold
wanna
on.
pay for it on
Megan,
Amazon, it'll
Megan,
tell
Megan,
me
Megan, follow
Peacock
me.
has it for free.
That's true if you're subscribed to it. I'm not saying that you're
Right,
using it,
that's what I was asking.
but what I'm saying is we know that people are searching for free movies online. So many of those people wouldn't go into like Target and steal something, but it feels very different when you're sitting at your computer. Now,
True.
sure, there are websites out there where you can put in your here's the streaming services I have. You do a search, it tells you, oh, here's the movies, here's where you can watch it. But it also gives you some other information. So if we take it to, let's call it gray areas, if we use Netflix as an example, Netflix has different libraries depending on what country you're in. So
Oh,
you might find out that, oh, well, Netflix in Great Britain has the movie that I'm interested in. I pay for Netflix, so I want to watch that movie, but I don't live in Great Britain and it's not available in the United States. Well, you can get a VPN, make your computer look like it's coming from Great Britain, open up Netflix, and poof, you have your movie. Well, is that ethical? That's probably against some sort of terms of service in Netflix or something like that. But the point of all this isn't to incriminate people. Again, our whole ministry is about we're all sinners, right? But the difference is how we choose to use technology. And technology sometimes allows us to forget that there are consequences to things. Most of us would not run in and rob a liquor store, or like I like the example of going into Target, stealing a Blu-ray when we can just sit behind our keyboard and get the contents of that Blu-ray for free at home, potentially without paying for it at all. There are more people who will steal it when they're behind their keyboard than they would in real life.
absolutely.
Because it feels like it's less real. And now with AIs, we now have this agent that's going out and making its own decisions. And I gave you an example just from last night of two different agents that are direct competitors with each other. I like the Claude Code CLI one better for the stuff I'm doing. And part of that is because he didn't create roadblocks for me, whereas the ChatGPT tool did. Now, realistically speaking, for the general public, the ChatGPT tool is probably safer for us. So it doesn't let us go and do crimes with these agents. It lets us stay within the lines. Now, what I'm doing in my thing actually is not criminal, but these AIs don't have any idea of our necessary intent, right? They have to assume that we're bad actors because I could tell it, oh, my intent is to do A, B, and C. And then once it builds it for me, I can do X, Y, and Z with it, which is, less friendly, something like that. Okay. But in any case, today's episode, though, we're kind of winding down here. I filled in the time for my ums, Megan. But to turn this back to our ministry, we spend a lot of time using these tools and staying up on these things to produce our content. And I want our viewers and our visitors to our site to go and make themselves more knowledgeable about these AIs and what they can do, so that when you are giving us feedback, the feedback comes from a place of knowledge, not ignorance. Constructive feedback is always good. If you see something in one of our images, our cartoons, my papers that, you don't think quite holds up, or you think like, hey, that seems weird, or, I think we had one a while ago where there was an extra foot or something. Those are funny,
Right.
ha ha things, like, okay, yeah, I need to double check for extra limbs, But to just to make fun
And
of
now
somebody,
I notice that every time.
to judge something that you have no understanding of just because you've decided you hate it, just frankly is not very nice. So be nicer.
Right. Like, if I did something in my work that warrants a death threat, please give me actual constructive criticism,
Why
not
do you
just
want to kill
tell
me?
me you want me dead. Because
Right.
I really don't feel like me making a cartoon image is worth me dying over.
Yeah, it
So,
seems reasonable to me. Yeah.
yeah, probably.
So,
But
all right. Well, so try to keep a lot of those things in mind and realize how, biblical research and apologetics is I really think is going to be a thing that's going to be taking off more and more now that we have these tools where we can defend biblical truths, I believe, more effectively and faster than we've ever been able to. We just have to start asking the right questions
and
that we were too lazy to ask before.
factually, there's a lot less emotion in it when you are getting the straight facts.
Sure. Yep. All right. Well, so we'll wind up there. So go and educate yourself on AI and maybe even give us some feedback on things you'd like us to search into our biblical research for, so I could do the research and Megan can make some cool graphics and animation. But until next time, this has been the Skeptic and the Disciple signing off. Have a good one.
Have a good one, everyone. See you next week.
Thank you for watching The Skeptic and the Disciple. Hit that like and subscribe. See you next time!